Most people think success is loud. They think it announces itself with confidence, money, or attention. But the truth is quieter than that. The real advantage in life is invisible. It's not talent. It's not luck. It's not even hard work. It's what you know and what you continue to learn. Right now, without realizing it, your life is being shaped by your level of understanding. Not your intentions, not your dreams, your understanding. Two people can wake up in the same city with the same 24 hours and live completely different lives. One moves forward calmly. The other feels stuck, frustrated, reactive. The difference is not effort. It's awareness. Most people stop educating themselves the moment school ends. They assume learning is something you do when you're young, not something you carry for life. And slowly, without noticing, they begin living on outdated thinking, outdated beliefs, outdated habits, outdated views of the world. That's when life starts feeling heavy, confusing, overwhelming. Not because life got harder, but because their understanding stopped growing. Here's the uncomfortable truth most people never face. You don't experience life as it is. You experience life as you understand it. If your understanding is shallow, life feels chaotic. If your understanding is limited, your options feel limited. If your understanding is emotional, your decisions become emotional. This is why education is power, not academic education, but self-education. The kind you choose, the kind you pursue quietly, the kind no one applauds. Every time you learn something new, you gain clarity. Every time you understand something deeper, you gain control. And control brings calm. That calm is what people mistake for confidence. But it's not confidence. It's preparedness. The world doesn't reward potential. It rewards readiness. And readiness is built through daily learning, not in massive breakthroughs, not in dramatic overnight change, but in small, consistent moments of curiosity. A few pages read, a new perspective understood, a belief questioned, a pattern recognized. Most people consume information to be entertained. Very few consume information to be transformed. That's why most people repeat the same year of their life over and over again, just with different dates. If you feel stuck, if you feel behind, if you feel like life keeps testing you with the same problems, it's not because you're unlucky. It's because life is asking you to learn something you've been avoiding. Education is not about knowing everything. It's about knowing more than yesterday. When you commit to educating yourself daily, something subtle but powerful happens. You stop reacting as much. You start seeing patterns. You begin understanding people, situations, and yourself with more clarity. And quietly, without announcing it, you begin pulling ahead. Not because you're better than others, but because you chose to keep learning when most people chose comfort. And that choice changes everything. Most people fear failure. They fear making mistakes. They fear getting it wrong. But what they should fear more is ignorance. Failure is temporary. Ignorance is expensive, and it charges interest every single day. Every bad decision you've made wasn't because you were weak. It was because you didn't know better at the time. Every relationship that drained you, every opportunity you missed, every mistake that cost you time, money, or peace, those weren't accidents. They were gaps in understanding. And life does not forgive ignorance just because your intentions were good. Here's the hard truth. The world doesn't punish you for what you don't know. It simply allows you to suffer the consequences of it. You don't get rejected because you're unlucky. You get rejected because you didn't understand the game. You don't stay broke because you don't work hard. You stay broke because no one taught you how money actually works. You don't stay stuck emotionally because you're weak. You stay stuck because you never learned how the mind operates. This is why educating yourself daily is not optional, it's survival. The most dangerous person is not the evil one. It's the uninformed one who thinks they know enough. Ignorance makes you emotional. It makes you reactive. It makes you easy to manipulate. People who don't understand themselves are controlled by their moods. People who don't understand money are controlled by fear. People who don't understand people are controlled by approval. And the worst part? Ignorance feels comfortable. It tells you, you're fine as you are. It whispers, you don't need to change. It convinces you that learning can wait. But while you're waiting, the world keeps moving. Those who educate themselves daily don't panic as much. They don't fall apart when things go wrong. They adapt. Because learning builds options, and options create freedom. Failure teaches you one lesson. Education teaches you hundreds before you ever fall. This is why smart people fail forward. They don't just experience life, they study it. They ask, why did this happen? What pattern is repeating? What am I missing here? Most people don't ask questions. They complain. And complaining feels easier than learning, but it keeps you blind. When you stop learning, life starts teaching you through pain instead, through loss, through regret, through consequences. But when you educate yourself daily, you pay the price up front in focus, discipline, and humility. And that price is far cheaper than repeating the same mistake for the rest of your life. Knowledge doesn't make life easy, it makes life navigable. And in a world that is constantly changing, the most dangerous decision you can make is deciding that you already know enough. Most people feel out of control, but they can't explain why. They say life is unpredictable. They say circumstances are unfair. They say they're just reacting to whatever happens next. But the truth is simpler and harder. When you don't learn daily, life controls you. When you do, you start controlling life. Control doesn't come from power. It comes from understanding. Every time you educate yourself, you reduce confusion. You reduce fear. You reduce the number of situations that catch you off guard. Think about it. Fear usually isn't about the problem itself. It's about not knowing what to do when the problem shows up. People panic because they don't understand money. They stay silent because they don't understand communication. They stay stuck because they don't understand their own patterns. Daily learning gives you clarity, and clarity gives you control. Not control over everything, but control over your responses. And your response is what shapes your future. When you learn every day, you stop guessing. You stop reacting emotionally. You start making decisions intentionally. You begin to see patterns others miss. You recognize red flags earlier. You anticipate outcomes before they happen. That's not intuition. That's educated awareness. Most people live in reaction mode. Something happens, they panic. Something fails, they quit. Something hurts, they shut down. But educated people respond differently. They pause. They assess. They adjust. Because learning expands your internal map of reality. The more you understand how things work, people, systems, money, habits, psychology, the less chaotic life feels. Life doesn't become easier. You become better prepared. This is why daily learning builds confidence without arrogance. You're not confident because you feel good. You're confident because you've studied the terrain. A person who studies finances doesn't fear money. A person who studies communication doesn't fear confrontation. A person who studies themselves doesn't fear being alone. Education removes the mystery, and mystery is what creates anxiety. Here's something most people miss. Daily learning doesn't require huge time. It requires consistency. 15 minutes of focused learning every day will outperform 3 hours once a month, because repetition rewires the mind. You stop waiting for motivation. You stop waiting for permission. You start building leverage quietly, while others scroll, while others complain, while others distract themselves. You invest in understanding, and over time, that understanding compounds. You start seeing that control isn't about forcing outcomes, it's about being prepared for them. Educating yourself daily is how you stop feeling lost. It's how you move from reacting to directing. And the more you learn, the less life feels like something happening to you, and the more it feels like something you're consciously shaping.
Here's a truth most people don't realize until it's too late. You don't suddenly fail in life. You slowly fall behind. And it usually starts the moment learning stops. Nothing dramatic happens at first. You still wake up. You still work. You still function. But underneath the surface, you're losing ground. The world doesn't pause because you got comfortable. Industries evolve. Skills become outdated. Opportunities shift direction. And if you're not learning, you're not standing still. You're moving backward while thinking you're fine. That's the dangerous part. The loss is silent. People assume they're stuck because of bad luck, bad timing, or bad people. But often, it's bad information or outdated information. What worked 5 years ago might hurt you today. What made you successful once may now be limiting you. If you stop learning, your thinking freezes in time. And frozen thinking leads to fragile results. This is why some people feel exhausted even though they're doing everything right. They're working hard but with old tools. They're putting effort into strategies that no longer fit reality. Effort without updated knowledge creates burnout. Learning keeps you aligned with reality. When you keep learning, you adapt before you're forced to. You adjust before things break. You evolve before you're replaced. Most people don't fail because they lack ability. They fail because they stopped upgrading their mind. They reached a level of comfort, and comfort slowly turned into decline. Here's the uncomfortable truth. There is no neutral position in life. You're either growing or you're decaying. Just like a muscle that isn't used. Just like a skill that isn't practiced. A mind that isn't learning begins to weaken. Not immediately, not obviously, but eventually you start resisting change. You dismiss new ideas. You say things like, "That won't work," or "That's not for me." That's not wisdom. That's stagnation. Learning keeps you flexible. It keeps your ego small and your awareness sharp. It reminds you that there's always more to understand. And here's the good news. The moment you start learning again, the decline stops. You don't need to overhaul your life. You don't need to catch up overnight. You just need to restart growth. One book, one skill, one new perspective. Learning reactivates momentum. It wakes up curiosity. It restores confidence. It reminds you that progress is still available. If you feel stuck, behind, or frustrated, ask yourself one honest question. What am I currently learning? Because growth doesn't come from working harder alone, it comes from thinking better. And thinking better always begins with learning. Your mind works exactly like your body. If you don't feed it properly, it doesn't just stay weak, it starts working against you. You already know what happens when you don't eat well. Low energy, poor performance, slow recovery. The same thing happens mentally. If you don't feed your mind with knowledge, perspective, and understanding, it gets weak, distracted, and reactive. And when your mind is weak, life feels heavy. You overthink, you doubt yourself, you feel overwhelmed by small problems. Not because life is harder, but because your mind isn't strong enough to handle it. Most people feed their minds junk all day. Endless scrolling, negative news, pointless arguments, entertainment with no value. That's mental junk food. It fills time but starves growth. Then people wonder why they feel anxious, confused, and unmotivated. You cannot consume chaos and expect clarity. What you feed your mind becomes the voice inside your head. Feed it fear, you'll think fearful thoughts. Feed it ignorance, you'll make weak decisions. Feed it negativity, you'll see obstacles everywhere. But when you feed your mind with the right knowledge, something shifts. Your thoughts slow down. Your confidence stabilizes. Your decisions improve. Learning doesn't just add information, it builds inner strength. A well-fed mind doesn't panic easily. It doesn't break under pressure. It doesn't crumble when things go wrong. Because it has context, it has understanding, it has depth. Think about the last time you learned something valuable. A new idea, a new skill, a new way of seeing things. You felt sharper, more capable, more in control. That's mental nutrition. And just like food, it has to be consistent. You can't eat once a week and expect strength. You can't learn once a month and expect clarity. Daily input shapes daily output. This doesn't mean studying for hours. It means being intentional. 10 pages instead of 10 minutes of scrolling. One meaningful video instead of random content. One deep conversation instead of surface noise. Small choices, massive impact. A fed mind creates better questions. Better questions create better answers. Better answers create a better life. And here's the key most people miss. Your environment feeds your mind whether you choose it or not. If you don't choose what goes in, life chooses for you. That's why growth feels accidental for some and intentional for others. Successful people don't wait to feel motivated. They control what they consume. They protect their attention like their future depends on it, because it does. Your mind is your most valuable asset. Everything you want, success, peace, confidence, passes through it first. Feed it well, because a strong mind doesn't just survive life, it shapes it. Success is not owned by the smartest people in the room. It's not reserved for the most talented, the most confident, or the most connected. Success belongs to the people who refuse to stop learning. That's it. Look closely at anyone who stays ahead for a long time, not just a quick win, but real, sustained success, and you'll find the same pattern. They stay curious. They stay humble. They keep learning. The moment someone believes they know enough, they start falling behind even if it doesn't show immediately. Because the world never pauses. Industries change. Skills expire. Opportunities shift. And if you're not growing, you're quietly losing relevance. Most people think learning is something you do early in life and then cash in later. That mindset is dangerous. Because success today demands constant upgrading. What worked 5 years ago may not work now. What made you valuable yesterday may be average tomorrow. The people who win understand this deeply. They don't cling to old knowledge. They don't defend outdated ideas. They adapt. Learning keeps you flexible. It sharpens your instincts. It helps you see patterns before others do. It gives you options when everyone else feels stuck. And here's something important. Learning is not always comfortable. Sometimes it exposes what you don't know. Sometimes it challenges beliefs you've held for years. Sometimes it forces you to admit you were wrong. That discomfort, that's growth. People who avoid learning are often protecting their ego, not their future. Because learning requires humility. It requires saying, I can be better. And that sentence is powerful. Every skill you admire in someone else was learned. Every advantage they have was built, not gifted. They didn't wait until they felt ready. They learned while they were uncertain. They grew while they were uncomfortable. That's why success follows learners. Not because learning guarantees results, but because it prepares you to recognize and use opportunities when they appear. Opportunities don't announce themselves loudly. They reward the prepared. Two people can face the same moment. One sees confusion, the other sees leverage. The difference is knowledge. And here's the truth most people don't want to hear. You don't fall behind suddenly. You fall behind slowly by choosing comfort over growth, by repeating what you already know, by avoiding what challenges you, by stopping your education while life keeps testing you. But the moment you commit to learning again, momentum returns, confidence grows, clarity improves, options expand. You stop reacting to life and start navigating it. Success isn't a finish line. It's a moving target. And the only people who keep up are the ones who never stop learning. Not because they have to, but because they understand that growth is the price of staying ahead. Every life is shaped by decisions, not the dramatic ones people talk about, but the small daily choices no one sees. What to focus on, who to listen to, what to tolerate, what to walk away from. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Most bad decisions don't come from bad intentions. They come from limited knowledge. When you don't know better, you can't choose better. That's why learning quietly upgrades your entire life, not all at once, but decision by decision. The more you understand how things actually work, the less emotional your choices become. You stop reacting. You start evaluating. Knowledge gives you perspective. Instead of asking, how do I feel right now? You ask, what leads where? And that single shift changes everything. Think about money decisions. Without education, money feels stressful, confusing, emotional. With knowledge, it becomes strategic. Same income, different outcomes. Think about relationships. Without understanding people, boundaries, and patterns, you repeat the same mistakes with different faces. With knowledge, you recognize warning signs early, and peace becomes normal. Think about your career. Without learning, you guess. With learning, you position yourself. You stop chasing outcomes and start building leverage. Better knowledge doesn't just give you answers, it gives you timing. You learn when to wait, when to act, when to say no. And most people struggle not because they make one huge mistake, but because they make thousands of small, uninformed ones. Day after day, knowledge interrupts that cycle. It slows you down just enough to think clearly. It creates space between impulse and action, and that space is where wisdom lives. The people who seem lucky in life are often just informed. They know which risks are worth taking, which opportunities are distractions, which voices matter and which don't. They've learned how to think, not just what to think. And that's the real power, because life doesn't test you with obvious choices. It tests you with subtle ones. The email you respond to, the habit you ignore, the opportunity you postpone. Knowledge sharpens your instincts so you stop sabotaging yourself quietly. And here's something important. Better choices don't always feel good in the moment. Sometimes the right choice is uncomfortable. Sometimes it costs you convenience. Sometimes it means walking away before you feel ready. But knowledge gives you the confidence to trust long-term outcomes over short-term comfort. You stop asking, what's easy? And start asking, what's right? That's maturity, that's growth, and that's why learning compounds. Each piece of knowledge improves the next decision. Each good decision improves the next result. And each result builds momentum. This is how lives change, not overnight, but permanently. So if you want a better future, don't obsess over motivation, obsess over understanding. Because when you know more, you hesitate less, regret less, and move forward with clarity. The more you know, the better choices you make, and the better your life becomes. One decision at a time. Now, Section 8. Also 9 and 10 in one time. Thanks. Section 8. Grow your mind and your life will follow. Is approximately equal to 500 words. Your life will never rise above the level of your thinking. Not your wishes, not your intentions, your thinking. Everything you experience, your habits, your income, your relationships, your confidence is downstream from how your mind works. That's why real change never starts on the outside, it starts in the mind. When you grow your mind, your life has no choice but to grow with it. Because a stronger mind sees options where others see walls. It sees lessons where others see failure. It sees direction where others feel lost. Most people try to change their lives by changing circumstances. New job, new city, new routine. But if the mind stays the same, the results stay the same. The same fears, the same patterns, the same limits, just in a different setting. Growing your mind means upgrading how you interpret the world. You stop taking everything personally. You stop seeing setbacks as signs to quit. You stop assuming the worst when things get uncomfortable. And that mental shift quietly transforms everything. A grown mind doesn't panic under pressure. It pauses. It asks better questions. It looks for leverage instead of escape. That's why education isn't just about skills, it's about identity. As you learn, you don't just gain information, you gain composure. You become harder to shake, harder to manipulate, harder to discourage. And over time, people notice. Not because you talk more, but because you react less. That's power. A grown mind creates emotional stability. And emotional stability creates consistency. Consistency creates progress. This is why two people can face the same challenge and end up in completely different places. One breaks, the other builds. The difference isn't strength, it's perspective. When you grow your mind, you stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what is this teaching me? That question alone turns pain into progress. And the beautiful part is this, you don't need talent to grow your mind. You don't need permission. You don't need perfect conditions. You just need curiosity and discipline. A book instead of scrolling. Reflection instead of reaction, learning instead of complaining, small decisions repeated daily, and slowly, almost invisibly, your life starts expanding. More clarity, better choices, stronger boundaries, higher standards. Because when the mind grows, the ceiling disappears. Every problem feels permanent until you understand it. Most stress doesn't come from the problem itself. It comes from not knowing what to do next. Confusion creates fear. Clarity creates calm. And clarity comes from knowledge. The right knowledge doesn't just give you answers, it changes how you approach problems entirely. Instead of panicking, you analyze. Instead of reacting, you diagnose. Instead of quitting, you adjust. Think about any challenge you've faced. Money issues, relationship struggles, career uncertainty, inner doubt. None of these are random. They have patterns, causes, solutions. But without understanding, you keep treating symptoms instead of roots. That's why learning is powerful. It teaches you how to see beneath the surface. When you gain knowledge, problems shrink. Not because they disappear, but because you finally know where to apply pressure. Knowledge turns chaos into structure. It shows you what matters and what doesn't, what you can control and what you can release. And suddenly, what once felt overwhelming becomes manageable. This is why successful people don't avoid problems. They solve them. They know that every obstacle carries information, and once you extract that information, the obstacle loses its power. Knowledge also gives you options. Without it, you feel trapped. With it, you see paths. You realize there's more than one way forward. More than one solution. More than one outcome. That alone restores hope. And here's something most people miss. Knowledge doesn't just fix problems, it prevents them. When you learn patterns, you stop repeating mistakes. You recognize warning signs early. You make adjustments before damage is done. That's wisdom. And wisdom creates peace. So if life feels heavy right now, don't ask, how do I escape this? Ask, what do I need to understand? Because once you understand, you stop being a victim of circumstance and start becoming a problem solver. And problem solvers always rise. Life responds to growth, not instantly but inevitably. When you commit to learning, something subtle begins to shift. Your confidence grows quietly. Your decisions sharpen. Your presence changes. You don't notice it at first, but life does. Opportunities start finding you. People take you more seriously. Your tolerance for chaos decreases. Not because you're lucky, but because you're prepared. Learning is an investment that never stops paying. It compounds in ways you can't predict. A book you read today influences a decision next year. A lesson you learn now saves you from regret later. A skill you develop quietly opens a door unexpectedly. That's how life rewards growth, not with fireworks but with alignment. And the more you learn, the more you realize you were never stuck. You were just under-informed. Most people wait for motivation. Learners build momentum. Most people wait for clarity. Learners create it. And that's why they move forward, while others stall. The reward of learning isn't just success, it's self-trust. You begin to trust your judgment, your timing, your instincts. And when you trust yourself, fear loses its grip. You stop chasing validation. You stop rushing outcomes. You stop comparing timelines. Because you know something others don't. As long as you're learning, you're winning even when it doesn't look like it yet. So don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait until life forces you to grow. Choose it. Feed your mind daily. Sharpen your thinking. Expand your understanding. Because life always rewards those who prepare quietly. Keep learning. And you'll wake up one day realizing you've become someone capable of handling the life you once hoped for. And that's the real victory.